I'm Barry Matthews. I'm one of the founders of Source. We founded the company 5 years ago.
Take your hand off your hip, Barry.
Oh, sorry. Do I? Thank you. Yes, thank you. It's also partly my own fault that I'm here because I think the 5x10 was sort of my idea a couple of years ago. And I did speak, yeah, two years back. I spoke on RPA, I think, on our first ever 5x10 on robotic process automation. I'm going to talk about something which is related. Tonight I'm going to talk about artificial intelligence and how I believe it's going to change the face of work as we know it and society as we know it. I think it's going to be truly transformational. It's nice that I'm here again for the second time, but it's not based on popularity at all. I'm sort of a stand-in, a bit of a last minute, so it's a triumph of practicality and availability, I think, over popularity. But so RPA, robotic process automation, we talked about that 2 years ago because I believed then and believe now that it has the potential to transform the outsourcing industry. So to transform business process outsourcing by replacing jobs that were done by sort of lower skill, if you like, and in lower cost locations with intelligent machines. And it's intelligent machines that I'm going to talk about tonight, and artificial intelligence. However, first I want to tell you a little anecdotal story which has got nothing to do with the topic of artificial intelligence, but it makes me giggle, so I thought I would share it. And this is again the theme I always seem to have, is that I grew up on a pig farm, which I'm obviously very proud about because I seem to include it in every one of my speeches. And so we talked about AI on the pig farm in South Devon where I grew up, but AI wasn't artificial intelligence. AI was artificial insemination. Now, not many people know this, well I do, but maybe you do as well, I don't know, but pigs are quite difficult to impregnate. So they're quite temperamental, especially first time. But my dad was very good at lending a hand where it was necessary and doing the artificial insemination. And he became known as something of a sort of pig whisperer in the southwest. Farmers would bring their pigs to him and he would help to impregnate them. And he would do that with various tools. You need certain tools to impregnate pigs. And you need a special sauce which arrives in a polystyrene box and it's in these plastic bottles with big white nozzles, and he became very good at it. And this is a true story that my brothers and I were chatting about our sort of idyllic childhood at Christmas and reminiscing of how we used to ride our bikes around the farm and squirting each other with water pistols, and then suddenly realised I don't think we had any water pistols. We had these plastic bottles with big white nozzles that my father had discarded on the sowshed floor, and we definitely didn't wash them. And we squirted each other with them, which is why I have such nice skin and glossy hair. However, I reminisce, and I've used a lot of my time already. So artificial intelligence, what is it? It's effectively the ability for machines to think like humans. And lots of people who are much brighter than I think it's going to be the next big thing. And so you find that venture capitalists and private equity firms are investing billions in AI right now. Large organizations investing billions in it. You look at IBM's Watson supercomputer, they've just invested $1 billion in that. I went to New York recently and spent some time with the Watson supercomputer team with a retailer, and they're looking to use the supercomputer to predict what we're going to buy next before we even know that we need something. You look at Google, have just bought, I think, 8 robotics companies, and some of them in artificial intelligence, spending a lot of money on it. You think there are people who are talking about it a lot. There's a guy called Elon Musk who's the CTO of Tesla, and he also runs a company called SpaceX. He's a multi-millionaire investor in Silicon Valley. He says that AI is going to be more dangerous than nuclear weapons in the wrong hands. And then Stephen Hawking, who's quite a bright bloke apparently, he said quite, it was quite well publicised recently on the BBC, that in the wrong hands, again, artificial intelligence has the potential to end mankind as we know it. So it's a really big deal. Now for me, it comes in sort of 4 different flavours when I think about artificial intelligence and what is it. And I'm going to talk about each of them independently. Now the first one is computer vision, the ability for computers or machines to be able to see. So you think of facial recognition, passport scanning for example, iris recognition. Think of the potential for computers to start seeing us and to be able to recognise who we are, and that's happening now. Big implications for for crime and solving crime, for example, big implications for the medical industry, big implications for social media. Your computer will be able to start seeing you. And then I think about the second one is the abilities for machines to learn. So intelligent machines that can gradually improve over time. Hardware and software is always degraded over time, but now machines can learn. We work with a company called IPsoft, whose technology improves over time. It works in an IT environment, so in an infrastructure where it's monitoring incidents that occur, let's say on a website. And when it sees an incident occur, it will fix that incident, or it might monitor it being fixed manually, but it will then update itself and educate itself, so that incident will never ever reoccur. And computers are now able to improve over time, and that sort of transforms things. The third area is natural language processing. So being able to talk to a computer as if I'm talking to you now, and for the computer to understand. Being able to input data into a computer in a non-structured way, so no longer in a sort of, let's say, a spreadsheet or a field-based format, but being able to talk to it normally through verbal or written communication and it understanding. And then the fourth area is voice recognition, speech recognition, both recognition where you can talk to a computer and it can talk back to you. So think Siri, basically, which is the sort of start, if you like. That's the sort of, I think of that as the first Model T Ford car years ago. Siri is the start. So think of that in another car analogy. But if I'm driving a car and I want to make a phone call now, it's a bit of a sort of clunky process. Theoretically, some phones will enable you to do it, but not very well. And what you really want to do is the sort of the Knight Rider kit car thing. You want to say, I want to phone Steve Jeffrey, and the car says to you, well, do you want to phone Steve's mobile? Do you want to phone his home number? Or check and say, well, actually, Steve's on holiday. And you'll have that, be able to interface with your car in that way. So they're the four areas. And if you think of those four areas individually, but as they converge, and technology develops in each of those four at the same time, you get something which is incredibly powerful. When you combine that with developments in mechanical robotics, so people walking, for example, you can soon see the sort of the Arnold Schwarzenegger films, or the Star Trek or Battlestar Galactica, the sort of robots and droids, or androids. You can see that could start to become a reality, because you've got a machine that can understand you, can talk to you, can see you, and can outthink you. And it's the outthinking that I think is really, really powerful. So there are futurologists, people who predict the future. And there's a very famous one called Raymond Kurzweil, and he says that in 30 years' time, something will occur which is called the singularity. So in 30 years' time, in 2045, he predicts that machines will outthink people. They will be able to think better and more powerfully than we can ourselves. They will then start to design the computers of the future themselves. And then that transforms things. The singularity is a term that comes from maths and from physics. It basically says it's a time when the normal rules which guide things go out of the window. It's just so fundamental, it transforms things. It's also called Omega, or oh my God, as I remember it, because I think that will be transformational. And they say at that point in time, we'll be able to back up our brains. All known illnesses will be able to be cured. We'll be able to halt the aging process, and we become part man, part machine. If something goes wrong with us physically, we'll be able to replace it with a machine, and that's in only 30 years' time. There'll be more technological change in the next 30 years than has occurred in the last 2,000 years. So that exponential growth kicks in, and it's going to be transformational. So I think the changing face of work, in 30 years' time, we won't even know what work looks like. It will be so different from the way it is now. There'll be so many things that we do today, we'll be looking back and saying, oh my God, I can't believe we did that manually. So I believe artificial intelligence has the ability to completely transform the way we do things. However, whether in that 30 years' time, it will have reached the southwest and will have changed the nature of artificial insemination, I have no idea, because some things are best done manually.